Our first question, we looked at how city population affects Airbnb popularity. We measured popularity by average reviews per month and number of listings. However, there was not a strong correlation for either of these measures. Number of listings had more of a correlation, but it's obviously a weaker measure because if there's bigger population, there's more homes in the city to rent out. We then looked at this on a geographic sense, and there was no change. There was still no apparent trend in the data. We looked into why average reviews per month did not have a trend, and we saw that the Americas tend to leave more Airbnb reviews than any other continent or area in the world. For our second question, we looked at the different room types for cities and saw the entire room represented in orange, shared rooms in blue, and private rooms in green, and saw that Istanbul is very much private rooms and shared compared to entire homes, whereas Athens was almost entirely entire home listings. We then sorted by country to see how culturally it differed, and contrary to our predictions, the U.S. was very pro shared living spaces in terms of that private rooms or shared rooms listings compared to the rest of the world, which was we initially thought the U.S. would be sharing averse. We then thought this was the most interesting view to describe it, as you can see all of the different compositions of these cities on the world map. It's slightly difficult to see from this very zoomed out view. However, when we look more zoomed in, it gets a lot more interesting. So you can see cities like Rome and Geneva, which are almost entirely entire home listings, compared to places like Beijing and Hong Kong, which are much more varied. Finally, for our last question, we looked at how legislation affects Airbnb activity. And as you can see by the colors and size, there is no real effect on the number of listings or price for legislation. However, there is an effect on the average minimum number of nights, which showed to us that was the only effective legislation, was to changing the number of nights, whereas cities like Berlin, which had very harsh legislation, had very high number of nights, and cities like Stockholm and Rio, with no legislation, very low number of nights. This is another view showing no correlation between the score across the world.